When you send kids out the door and you're empty nesting, all of a sudden you've got parents coming through your door. And you better have that door open because it's our responsibility to give back to our parents. And it's actually a commandment. It says, honor your mother and your father.
Hey, friends. Thank you for tuning in to Girls Gone Gritty. I'm Jennifer, and I'm sitting here with Darian and Farley, and we're so happy Darian's back in studio. We had such a great week, and we're going to talk about our top three. We have some interesting facts that are going to change what you have in your diet, and we also have an incredible grit maker. But before we get to that, we'd like for you to continue to support us. And the best way to support us is to tune in and share one of the episodes you've listened to in the past, maybe the episode today. Get somebody to binge listen to Girls Gone Gritty, because we are trying to shift things in society by having real conversations. And having real conversations is what we love to do. So how was the week, guys?
Well, you were on a road trip.
My oldest son is a ski instructor in Telluride, Colorado. So I was able to take my mom out to see him, and we were busy. Mountain life is a busy life. Darian knows that. We hiked and biked, and we went out to a beautiful place I'd never been to in Utah, which is Moab.
I've spent a lot of time in Moab. I'm biking on slick rock, and you can go to the four corners.
I got dropped and had to hike down and then went on a 4-night, 5-day White River rafting trip.
Yes, because Grand Canyon ends there. Yeah, we were kayaking. So much fun.
Well, what's really cool, my mom is 6 years old and has gone through her own medical issues, as many people do when they get up there in age and are active. It's a great park because it's accessible for a lot of people. There's a nice road that goes in, and you're able to see some of the arches without having to go on these long hikes. So I think it's a great opportunity to get out into the national parks and be a part of nature. It helps not only with your physical health, it helps with your mental health too. And as we age, we all need that.
My dad blew out his Tevas. The only pair of shoes he blew out. He stepped into the muddy water to get into the boat, blew it out, and had one Teva for the rest of the trip. And we're talking hard terrain.
There's some hard terrain. We had our 8th grade class trip cross country. We drove in vans with kayaks, climbing gear, mountain bikes, and we ended up Moab, and it was amazing. And then you go to these cool little Indian villages there.
I saw
pectographs.
Yeah. And I remember on that trip, we go and we scout this river. We're in our kayaks. I look at my line. I put GMVS on duct tape on the bottom of my kayak. And as soon as I got into the river, I was just spacing out and flipped. So my photo going down the river was the bottom of my boat. GMVS is I'm like a class 5 river getting beat up and then tussled and tussled. It's so fun. I love it. I'm glad you had a great time.
Yeah. And going back, for those of you that don't know what pectographs are, we'll put that up on our story. It's an ancient cave dwelling drawing, and I have some photos of it. It's pretty cool. Right. So it was a great trip. But again, get outside. We are in fall, and it's a great time to be a part of nature. Although I don't feel like it's very fall-like here in the Northeast.
I was surfing Hurricane Gabriel, graced us with beautiful waves. Water's 70 degrees.
It was 85 in Columbus. I was at Ohio State this past weekend watching Abby's first fall ball game, and we were sweating bullets.
Oh, yeah.
And we're off to Notre Dame today.
Fall ball's here. So, ladies, I have some really fun top 3. And coming in at number 3, Give Me Nuts Now, Bravo Nuts.
That squirrel photo scared me.
It's phenomenal. I actually think it's pretty crazy. If you ever saw Cujo, Stephen King, like the animals taken back. We're going to attack people. This squirrel.
For those of you that haven't seen it yet, squirrels do not get rabies, which is a very good fact to know. But if they're fed consistently and all of a sudden there's no one feeding them, they can turn aggro. And this one was going and biting people and crawling up their legs and arms looking for snacks. And it just went AWOL.
Yeah. Well, when animals get used to humans living in their environment and they find food, they're going to get aggressive. My son's girlfriend, she had a bear get in the car looking for the apple, like literally ruin the whole car trying to get in just for this one apple.
I love when you see safari drive-thrus and you see a giraffe going in through the sunroof and people are doing naughty things and feeding them.
But it's so true. Jeff is in Vermont right now. And he called and he said, the bears are all over. There's a mama, daddy, and 4 little cubs. You cannot leave any food in your car. You have to have the windows up. Did you ever see the movie Cocaine Bear? Talk about a bear that went Richter looking for the bindle. Okay, at number 2, is it really Prime or just robbing us all of our extra dime?
They're sucking us in. We are sucked in because having a Prime membership by Amazon You do get your items within 24 hours and you're prioritized, but it is going to come with a fee. Just wait.
But this is what they do. They suck you in with free, make it cheap and easy, and
Get you
and put everybody out of business at a very low cost. And then all of a sudden you have no other option and they jack the prices up. And it's a rounding error for these guys at this moment just to acquire market share. I think it's incredible what Prime did with everybody in your household, and everybody you sent to would be free. And now they're ratcheting everything back. So be careful, because if it's too good to be true, it usually is.
And that's what credit card company did to us. We all got credit cards, and now you're paying 3% on top of everything that you are purchasing, on top of paying a fee to have your credit card yearly. And they sucked us into that. It's very sneaky tier marketing, and you can't even figure out how to get out of your Prime membership. There's so many loopholes.
No, you can't. Every day there's a brown bag coming, because Dee Dee figured out how to and realized. So these bags keep coming. I've said, stop hitting the button. But I do too. In the middle of the night, I wake up, I'm like, oh, I need it. And then the next day, what did I order? Because I'm half sleeping.
We are called consumers for a reason.
It's easy though. When I hit the button, click.
Mom and pop shops and the regular,
they're going out of
drugstores, and
it's important to support local. Let's go back to that. So there's that takeaway today.
Coming in at number one of the biggest names in processed foods is finally cleaning up its ingredients, and it's about time.
Wow. Oh, that's a great number one, because the amount of high fructose corn syrup in our diet is rampant and insane. And I guarantee that's the correlation between the type 2 diabetes and the obesity epidemic, because when you look at when they started putting this in our foods, it correlates with health and well-being going south. And most other developed countries don't use these additives in their foods.
We are talking about Tyson. We did not give you that name. So by the end of 2025, Tyson states they will remove not only high fructose corn syrup, but sucralose, BHA, BHT, and titanium dioxide. So if one jumps on the bandwagon, usually that forces all the other bigger conglomerates to do the same thing. And that is our hopes, is that everybody's going to see that Tyson's cleaning up their act, and hopefully more people will follow suit. Hey, they're the leader.
They have to.
They're leading the way.
Hey, I'd buy them. If you hear that,
I would buy them first before I would buy somebody that's just turning a blind eye to it.
I have to be skeptical too, because just watch the news. And if you're following this story, I guarantee in the next 6 to 9 months or 12, once you've forgotten about this, there will be a lawsuit that has predicated this move.
Of course.
Because they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. Let's be honest.
Unless it saves them money to potentially and not use all these ingredients.
Yeah. And if you've seen the sequel to Super Size Me and you see what the chickens do, you probably wouldn't eat chicken again.
Well, that brings us into a topic that is near and dear to all of our hearts. When you send kids out the door and you're empty nesting, all of a sudden you've got parents coming through your door. And you better have that door open, because it's our responsibility to give back to our parents. And it's actually a commandment. It says, honor your mother and your father. And that's where we, the three of us, are in life right now. And there's a lot of good tips that we can share with you so that you understand before you're in it what it looks like. And you need to have your ducks in a row in a lot of ways. So we're going to share what we have learned at this stage in our processes.
My mom is loving life. She's playing tennis 4 days a week. She swims every day in the dances on the bar. She can't handle taking a vitamin D pill, not even 1,000 milligrams. She can't handle any vitamins. She's so healthy. She uses Pond's on her face and she gets more beautiful every day.
She does.
And, you have to say, Mom, let's get you to the doctor. Let's get a wellness check. So they have these geriatric doctors. I remember calling one of Jeff's friends, like, hey, I have a question. My mom wasn't feeling too well. She's like, oh, you should get a geriatric doctor. And it's doctors that deal with people over 65.
It's too bad that they call it geriatric. It should be like aging like a fine wine doctor.
Right. They are more compassionate dealing with 65 and older. You just have to protect and really plan for what's next. Because my mom, who's crushing it and said, you better be home by noon so we can go play tennis, she's total polar opposite than someone who's half her age that is really hurting.
It hits you in the face when you least expect it. My parents were totally healthy and they were the epitome of independent living, doing everything on their own and staying active. And then my mom got an unfortunate diagnosis that took the rug out from underneath everybody. And my dad started to decline pretty radically at the same time that my mom was in the throes of her disease. And if you don't see it coming, then you aren't prepared. Unfortunately, my mom passed away, but I had to go in and pick up the pieces of their life. And my dad was somebody that did his taxes every year, and he was incredibly independent and did not rely on anybody for anything. And he had his own way of doing it all. Now I'm his power of attorney medically and financially, and me trying to pick up the pieces instead of having a file that was organized with all of the bills that are going out monthly and coming in. Unfortunately, my dad's insurance policy lapsed, their homeowners, and it was because it automatically renewed, but it went to his email. So if you don't see a physical copy of a bill, how are you paying things if you're just suddenly assuming the responsibilities? So I strongly recommend that now in life, try to get organized, ask your parents a lot of questions so that you can jump in and take over if need be in a crisis, and you don't know when that crisis is going to happen.
You have to also know, if you have a huge family, who is that person going to be, or those persons who are going to be the ones that make the decision. And it has to be done legally. You have to file it with your state lawyers, and you have to have every I dotted, because you can't just say, oh, we're just going to work it out. Because if you have a big family, you don't just work it out. And that's what you don't want. You don't want, when someone passes, for your family to break up because you didn't get a silver bowl and no one took care of mom, or who's going to pull the plug on dad, and it's gonna,
transparent.
Everything should be out there. And you do it now while your parents or parent is making the decisions.
And the complication is a lot of us are at a point where we're still getting kids, or have just gotten our kids out of the door. And they call this the sandwich generation, where we had kids a little bit later in life, and that trend is only increasing. And your parents, God willing, other than injury and disease, are living longer. So there's more issues because of that. And that's a challenge and a blessing. But if you're not planning on it while they're healthy, my dad had a tragic fall. That could have gone terribly. And that was something that you can't plan for. You can't plan for what happened to poor Farley's mother, and you can't plan for a lot of the diseases. But if you can get some of the ducks in a row and make sure that your parents get their regular checkups is really important. But also not seeing the doctor for every little ailment, because you can also get yourself to a point where all you're doing is a doctor's visits, and that can make you a crazy person.
You can't put that on older people. Well, you just have to make sure you have your wellness visit and see your heart doctor.
On that note, my dad is in hospice right now and has a condition that can end his life. Hospice is where you decide not to go through every doctor's door seeking answers that can't be solved and riddles that can't be fixed. My dad is healthier in hospice because he came off of all these meds that all these different doctors have been pushing down his throat. He has a catheter, so he's got prostate issues. We don't need to be on all this prostate medication anymore because he's got a catheter. There's a lot of interesting coincidences that aren't coincidences now that my dad's in hospice. He's actually thriving and he's more mentally competent because we've removed A, the meds, B, the stress of him having to go from doctor's appointment to doctor's appointment and then hear negative news, because at this stage in his life, it's not going to be positive news.
They don't sugarcoat it, and they do not have bedside manners. It's like, hey, you do this or it's death. Not that they want to scare you, but they have to protect themselves.
So we remove that anxiety from
you got to remove it.
And he could be in hospice for years.
Well, how stressful is it to have to get someone to the doctor?
It's stressful because my dad can't walk.
Yeah.
So, and you want to hear how crazy the system is. And that might be a totally different episode, but my dad used to have to go to a urology appointment all the time. And he's not mobile. So we have a lift that gets him out of bed and puts him into a wheelchair. I had to install a wheelchair lift, which is like a elevator in the garage. I had to buy a wheelchair compatible minivan. And when I did all these things, I did it so that I didn't have to hire a transportation company to come get my dad, because that was embarrassing, because it looks like an ambulance. And my dad doesn't want everybody in the neighborhood thinking, oh, where's Bill going now? So we could take him to his appointments. And if he needed to go to the hospital, we could take him. Well, the urologist office is not equipped to handle people that are not mobile. So they want him to come into their office on a stretcher from a transportation company, which is $380 to go a mile. And that makes no sense. Why is the urology office not equipped with a hydraulic lift like we have to get him out of the wheelchair? It's just
money.
It's so broken. Yeah, it is.
Well, it's hard because you're so emotionally attached, and it's difficult because you're trying to make the best decision for a parent who's challenged, and you don't remember them that way. You don't want to remember them that way. Thankfully, with my situation, my mother-in-law is about 10 years older than my parents. So I see what's happening in her life right now. And I'm able to help my husband through it because it's not my mother. And I'm a sounding board for him. And if you're having this challenge at home, lay out lots of options. And sometimes people aren't ready to take on those difficult transitions. So the first thing we had to assess was her ability to care for herself. She lives alone. And that is hard. We had to take away her car a few years ago because she was not remembering things. And we thought she's going to hurt somebody or herself. And either scenario we couldn't live with. So unfortunately, we had to take the keys. Now that reduced her mobility and that made it really difficult for us to make sure she got places and the doctor's appointments. So it put a burden on other people. And you do end up being the parent for your parent, which I think is really challenging. But how easy is it
for doctors to go, oh, they can't drive anymore, just take their keys because they're too old? Yeah. Try telling my mom that.
Oh my God.
Look,
the DMV should require them to go back and get reassessed at age.
They're not dead. That's the thing. And Jeff was driving to the beach the other day, and all of a sudden, this old lady ran the stop sign, and a pickup truck T-bones her. So Jeff, who's the first responder, ran out of the car. Are you okay? She was fully shaken up. The person sitting shotgun, the granddaughter, horrified. She's like, oh my gosh. And please don't.
They can kill themselves. They can kill someone else.
Call my insurance company because now they're going to take their license.
And that might be the perfect example of when it's time.
That corner, people just don't see the stop sign. So it's not because she was old. She was just, maybe because she was old. But
listen, there should be
reaction time changes. Let's be honest.
And another system of checks and balances with the DMV. And my dad and I got into a brawl because I said, Dad, I'm white knuckle driving with you. And Mom needed to go to chemo quite often. So he wanted to be the person that was driving her prior to losing his mobility. He fell after my mother passed away and lost his mobilities. And that happens really fast. When your parents start falling down, it is a very big red flag and you better get prepared. But if the DMV would just help, you call them and say, hey, my dad's driving right now or my mom's driving right now and we're having a really hard time. We don't want them to hurt themselves or anyone else. Would you please pull them over? And they get pulled over and they have a conversation and the cop assesses things and revokes their license. Oh, they don't have to know that it comes from us, but that was a very big bone of contention with my dad. And losing your independence in so many different ways, it happens to them overnight. All of a sudden, they're not making the same decisions. They're not doing their taxes. They're not paying their bills because they don't have the mental capacity to continue doing what they did. But you better be able to prove that. When you're a power of attorney, medically or financially, it doesn't mean that you just take over their life. It's only when they're proven to be mentally incompetent. And a lot of times when people are in a rehab facility and they're drugged up because they had a surgery and now they're coming off of things, they aren't in the best situation to make the right decisions on their behalf. So you have to have these types of legal arrangements in place prior to the accident, the illness, because when they're making counterproductive decisions for themselves and you watch it, it's devastating. Yeah. And if you don't have the power to step in and correct them at that moment, or now you have to hurry up and go find the attorney and go through the paperwork, it's time consuming, it's an expense, but it doesn't happen overnight. And, decisions that need to be made immediately can really determine a positive or a negative outcome. So you want to be the voice of reason.
Well, sometimes you don't see your parents, you live somewhere else and you think they're fine because you talk to them every day and you come home, you're like, wait, what happened? Or you realize that if you're living it every day, sometimes you don't see a decline. But either way, make sure they have their estate checklist completed. Now, the new health proxy, you have whoever you decide is the main person or persons, then you have to have 2 other witnesses, which they just added. New Jersey just did. So you can't just go to the hospital or go to your doctor's office.
Take advantage of somebody.
You can't just say, okay, I'm going to just fill out this proxy today. So that's super important. If you haven't figured out the end of life, go to the cemetery and get a plot, and you get the plot for the whole family. It's just things that will take less stress off of you when something does happen, and you plan for the future, and then you're not stressed about it.
And hopefully before getting to like the finality of death, like we can assess what their current status is, what their needs are, plan for their future so that they are happy and viable as long as possible. And we are too reliant on the ambulatory needs of aging people by having to get in their car. Some of these over 55 communities that people push away, but my parents, I've asked them for years to consider getting out of their large home that is not my childhood home. So I have no attachment to it, nor do my siblings, and getting to a place where they have more activities. They're still young, a place where they have the accessibility to walk to get a few grocery items, that they're able to not be so reliant on a vehicle.
It's like so easy for people to go, oh, wait, we're going to put you in a home. It's so much fun. And they have
that's
things
not
that's not what we're saying.
or whatever kind of take you out of your spectrum.
My plan will be to move out of my house and move into a city, and it probably wouldn't be a red bank, but like a red bank, where I can, very much like the European model, walk out my door, see 10 different people, maybe 10 sane people, have a cup of coffee, connect with people, and there's plenty of activities happening normally. And I'm not in an over 55 community, but I'm not isolated the way that we are in the United States, because I see my parents and they've got this huge house that they've got to worry about the yard. Farley, your dad's in the same situation. They got to worry about the house being clean. They've got to worry about how they're going to get their groceries. If we can try and help our parents plan to be self-sufficient longer, they will have a better quality of life, and they'll have a longer life if we can put some of those things in place. Now, that's not easy. Your mom, Darian, she does live in a community where she can walk to the Parker House and walk to the beach. Those things have 1000% added life.
She walks the boardwalk every day.
Yeah.
Her sisters live 2 blocks away.
Absolutely.
As soon as
They walk the boardwalk every single day. And it's called mobility. As soon as you take someone's mobility away, it's a different chapter, and it's hard. So you just keep moving, go over the checklist, make sure whoever's going to be in charge, get all the documents set. Once they're set, just go and love your parents and spend as much time as you can and call them and be happy and respect them. They want their dignity. Never take the dignity away from them because they're old.
One of the hard things I'd like to highlight is that it's incredibly expensive to have care in the home. My parents were not open to having care, so I had to hide it. I had to sneak it in and say, hey, you know what, Mom? I'm going to bring in a cleaning lady, and she's going to come in 2 days a week, because my mom was in the throes of chemo and did not want to relinquish the reins, and was simultaneously taking care of my dad while she was sick. So I slid in a caretaker who was called the cleaning lady. So there are creative ways around this if you have parents that are incredibly independent and don't want to lose their dignity. And it was a beautiful situation because they didn't realize that she was that person, but she was my eyes. My parents live in Florida. I'm in New Jersey. So I had a liaison in the house 2 days a week that could give me a good overview of what was going on. As my mother's illness started to get, worse, I ramped it up, and I went to care.com, an invaluable resource, because I was able to find caretakers that matched what I was looking for. And that's the other thing. You have to really understand what your parents' needs are. My dad, unfortunately, is total care. So if I were to put him in a facility, which I never want to do, that bill is skyrocketed because he can't do anything for himself. So I went from 2 days a week with a cleaning lady who was really a caretaker. Now I have 24/7 care 7 days a week. And I have 4 people that split that job, and it's very costly. So understand, if your parents have finances, that you can tap into at some point when they need help, and start getting educated in the cost of care. And if you are looking to buy a house and they don't have ample savings, maybe you want to take into consideration a grandma flat, because there are ways to do them in your home if you are that type of a person. That was the only way that my dad wanted to go. Assisted living, and this is without issues, starts off at $75,000 a year.
And I think that's low. And I think that has to be adjusted for where you live, because obviously areas it's different.
This is just the national median. It's $51,000 to $6,000 monthly. I can tell you right now, I pay $17,000 monthly. So it's a lot of money. It depends on the quality of care. It depends on if they're coming to your house. If you go through an agency, you might not get as phenomenal of care because the agency's taken a big hit from that person. So care.com, you're not going through an agency. which I like. So the person is actually putting more money in their pocket, and I feel like you get better quality care. Seniorliving.org or Place for Mom are two places where you can do some due diligence and figure out the national median on costs. And agingcare.com and Cedarhurst Senior Living, that's cost by state. Just get educated on that, because the number is going to surprise you. And as they come into situations where they need more care, that's just cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. The price tag continues to go up with regards to how much care they need.
Yeah. It really has to do with the research. Like I said, my mother-in-law, who's 86 and just requiring some care. She is working into dementia and some memory issues. And most of these organizations are venture capital or privately owned organizations that look at bottom line, and they look at how much money they're going to make. So you want to find a place that's going to feel like home. We were able to find one of two only privately owned facilities in the state of New Jersey. We're going to put my mother-in-law in Keensburg, New Jersey, and they have a family-owned business, and the son who runs it, his mother is in the facility. So when you find places that are willing to work with you about your loved one, that's a huge relief for my husband. You also have to get your finances in a row, because if you have a lot of assets, which my mother-in-law does not, you're able to protect your assets by putting them in trusts. You want to talk to some financial people before you put them into these assisted livings, because it can protect you. Because once the funds run out, then you become a Medicare bait, and they become very difficult to find.
There's a 6-year trail. So even if you form a trust, like if you try to, finagle things on some level just to protect our parents' generation, they want to be able to leave something behind.
Sure.
It's so important to my mom and dad, and they did an unbelievable job, but I wanted them to spend their money and enjoy their life, because they worked really hard. And another thing that I will mention that my grandmother did. Now, my grandmother lived until she was 103, and she drove until she was 100, until she started having some fender benders. But all through the course of the final years of her life, she took a yellow sticky note and she wrote on the back of everything in her house who she wanted to leave it to. I loved her piano as a kid. So the piano was bequeathed to me because she had enough time to think about all the things that she wanted to leave. And she was meticulous and put everybody's names behind the pictures and underneath the furniture. And it was organized, and there was no scuttlebutt, because she was smart about it.
Because you want to prepare and you have things be organized for your family once you're in that state where maybe you can't make those decisions, whether you're in a facility or whether you've passed. At the end of the day, what you're trying to do is really make it easier for your parents that are aging. And if you're an aging parent, you're also trying to make it easier for your kids and your grandkids once things get a little bit more muddled. So again, it's the prepare to fail, fail to prepare ideology. You want to try and get ahead of your aging parents. And it's a bummer, because we're a sandwich generation. Darian's got a young daughter, and I've got a 16-year-old son at home. So it's not easy dealing with an 86-year-old's issues. And they are both equally important, but you only have 24 hours in your day. So try and assess things and get ahead of them. Have a conversation about where people are in your life, and show them some love
what
and
your
respect.
mom and dad want at the end of the day as well.
They should fill out their will, and there's form, anything you want to give to any of the kids, you just do the itemization. This goes to this, a little description, this goes to this. And if you do it now,
but know how you want to honor them prior,
yes.
Because my mother and father did not want to have a plot. They wanted to be cremated. So it was a conversation that we had to have prior, so that I understood what they wanted and I could execute that on their behalf. And if I hadn't had that conversation with them, then I probably wouldn't have known exactly how they wanted it to look. It doesn't have to be a morbid conversation. Have a conversation with them and say, how do you envision this? What do you want? And that way, some of the cobwebs are removed from the topic and you feel organized.
Well, and it's the trend that I think is fantastic when someone does pass, framing it in the celebration of life. So we can celebrate people's time on this earth and have them feel respected and honored. And then once they've transitioned to the next life, they know that the family is going to be intact because that's the one thing that you don't want. You don't want the family to be in disrepair because of infighting, because of an aging parent. So having those conversations before and getting ahead of them, I think is immensely important, because everybody has a different way of handling how parents age. And when deceased, how that's going to look. So if we can do any of that to make life be celebrated and not a calculated mess at the end, I think that's a win-win for everybody.
All right. So who's our Got Grit winner of the week, ladies?
Well, we're going to go in a completely different direction, because there's been a lot of talk lately about the climate. We talked about how hot it is here on this planet, and we referenced in one of our plastics episodes that we've got problems with plastics. So our Got Grit winner of the week is the amazing Lauren Choi. She's a graduate student at Johns Hopkins University, and she's taken the solo cups that are so prevalent in our college campuses and makes all different materials and apparel out of them. It's called New Norm. She's been able to transition these seemingly unusable plastics. Those solo cups, they're very hard to recycle, and she's upcycled them into a whole company and a whole product that's changing the paradigm of not holding your plastic solo cup for too long.
I read in the article that there's a machine that shreds the red solo cups and turns them into fiber or thread, and the thread is very soft, and they're making beanies and sweaters, clothing.
Yeah, that was the innovation. So for those of you that have a Patagonia fleece, those are a lot of recycled plastics, but that's a typical fiber cut and sew, and there's a lot of waste created with some of those traditional things. So she's created this fiber that you can weave and knit into whatever you want, and her price point is extremely reasonable and accessible. I think her sweaters run between $45 and $85. So in today's world, that's not too bad, and you're also saving the environment with your purchase. So thank you, Lauren. You are our Got Grit winner of this week.
So everyone keep crushing the red solo cups.
But they have the cool metal ones now too, since we have plenty of red solo cups for Lauren to use.
The plastic farms.
And Darian is going to give us a lyric.
Yes.
Today.
So this song is one of my favorite songs, and it has huge meaning, because when I broke my neck, one of my friends who's a musician wrote the song, and it was about me and my situation. I sing it, I hear it, I listen to it, and I get goosebumps. I drive in the caddy, and I'm like, oh, heaven sends me, what a day. I guess I'm lucky for once in my lifetime. I thought I'd see you once again, my friend, but I guess it's not my time. Better start thinking twice. For once in my lifetime, so I will remember and not take another day for granted. Let's face it, better live it like there's no tomorrow. I will remember and not take another day for granted. For once in my life, for once in my life. So it's my friend Matt Reardon from Tahoe, Black Sunshine, and it's called Once in a Lifetime. And it's just a super powerful song. And thanks, Maddie.
And that song really ties back into our subject matter today.
Exactly.
And we want you to always take care of the people that you love. Maybe make a phone call today. Tune in to somebody who maybe is aging, maybe an aunt, uncle. It doesn't have to necessarily be a parent. It could be somebody in your life, maybe a next door neighbor that you need to check in on as they age gracefully. And we want to thank you so much for that beautiful song, Dee, because it hits home for so many people.
It's a great one. And don't forget to go out and hug your loved ones.
Interview them while they're here. I did that with my mom and dad, and we just hit play on our phone and asked them questions that we wanted answers to. So think of things that you might want to know about your parents that you haven't had that conversation. Where did they meet? What year was their first kiss? Things that you're not going to be able to go backwards and ask them when they're no longer here. So I recommend an interview or a little book that you jot down some very relevant details, because when they're not here to answer for themselves anymore, who are you asking?
You know, Farley, that's a great way for you to thread in some of those more difficult questions too. You're having a wonderful experience with somebody who's aging, and you can also thread in, well, we want to make sure we honor you the way that you want to be honored. And that way, that difficult conversation that we have to have is softened with remembrance and love, which is what it's all about.
Exactly. Thanks for tuning in to Girls Gone Gritty. We look forward to seeing you guys next week.